Welcome to the Touching Lives podcast. I'm your host, Kim Kirkman. Today, we'll be talking about planned giving and how you can help your legacy touch the lives of others in Arkansas. Today, we'll be joined with a good friend and mentor of mine, Paul Gardner. Paul, thank you for joining me today. I appreciate that and look forward to our conversations today.
Thank you, Kim, for inviting me. I look forward to our time together and hope that it's beneficial.
Yes. So let's start off by telling what planned giving means and what it is and how it's different from annual giving.
Well, that's a great beginning question. You know, obviously, in my view, all giving should be planned, even the annual gift. But typically in our profession, planned giving refers to what we typically refer to as end-of-life kind of giving, typically a will. And it's interesting as I look back over my years in the profession. In the mid-'60s, when I got into this work, about 75 to 80% of people, when they passed away, had no end-of-life gift. They passed in what we call intestate. Fortunately, through the years, as we have become a more philanthropic nation and society of people, that too has changed. And today, only about 45 to 50% of the population passes intestate. Now, the thing that there are many vehicles that we can use as it relates to making decisions about the end-of-life giving, our estate, where it goes. The most typical, most common is a gift by will, a bequest by will. And that can take on a variety of the way that end-of-life gift looks. For example, one could say, I want to give LifeTouch $10,000. And that would be written into the will as to distribution. They might say, let me give 25% of what I have when the Lord calls me home. And so a percentage amount is also fairly common. And for me, as I look at most of us, I think a percentage amount really makes sense because none of us know what we really are going to have at the time of our death. You all know that in the work that you do in terms of people can live for a long time, even beyond the services that you begin rendering to them. So a percentage amount, I think, is a good way to do that. Now, in addition, I think one of the things to keep in mind is I don't have to give a cash amount. For example, I may have a collection of valuable art. So I may want to give artwork to organizations like LifeTouch. So those are somewhat the beginning points, Kim, as it relates to giving a bequest by will.
So you kind of talked about percentages or a gift amount and not really knowing, how long you'll live when you're writing your will. What type of gifts are available for someone to use in a planned gift? And you mentioned art. Are there any other types of tools that can be used outside of just naming cash? Is that something that can be determined?
Absolutely. For example, one may want to give property. that is a fairly common gift. Now, it's interesting the way that has developed through the years. Those of us in the profession were typically very eager to accept a gift of property. But we learned through some bad gifts that people were dumping some bad property on not-for-profit organizations. And so our profession talked to people smarter than we were and said, okay, how do we avoid this? And so there's typically what's referred to as a phase one environmental study. For example, right now, I know of a church that is interested in a piece of property next door to them. It just so happens that that property used to be an automobile dealership. And in the back of the automobile dealership, of course, was the service bays. Well, my guess is there's environmental problems
Right.
with that property. So in order for that church to go through the process of taking that gift, receiving that gift, it's incumbent upon the current owner. So if someone gives you a gift of property, Kim, they need to be responsible for doing the environmental phase one study. And that way the property's clear and you can say, yes, sure, we'll be glad to take that property. Real estate, someone may have an apartment building or a house that they want to leave to you all. So yes, those are other kinds of end-of-life gifts that people can make beyond cash or a collectible. But personal property, be it raw land or a facility on the land.
So in something like a piece of real estate, we would make a determination to sell it and use the funds in some way.
That's exactly right. Obviously, the seller and you will, well, the seller should come to you with a valuation of the property. And it's not at all uncommon that you would, in your graciousness, say, and we too want to get a valuation. And it would be well worth it to be sure that the valuations that each side are arriving at is very close together. And so therein you get involved in some degree of negotiation. Now then, once it is deeded to you, now then, yes, you can sell it, and you can sell it for the valued amount, or it may be that you would sell it at a greater value. So that's always a nice gift to get. I remember an organization I worked with, an individual made a commitment of stock. And he said, now, in the event I should pass and my wife should pass before this commitment is completed, I want you to know that in my will, I have stated that this commitment will be paid off before anything else in my estate. So, you know, there's just a lot of kinds of things that we need to look at, be aware of, and be sure that both parties are covered. Because if it's not good for the donor, it's not good for you, and vice versa. So it becomes a real team effort as it relates to fundraising.
One thing that I've been in this role since September of 2022, and we have received probably 8 estate gifts in that time period. none of which I knew about. Now, some of these gifts were set up before my time, but why do you think when someone is wanting to be generous towards an organization, they don't tell them about it, that they are leaving their name, leaving, even if they don't say the amount? Or why do you think that happens, that people don't tell the organization, I'm making a gift to your organization?
Two things quickly come to mind on that. Number one, when it comes to money, people don't want to talk about it. They feel like that is very personal. I know it. The executor of my estate will know it. But there's really not a need for you to know it. We're going to surprise you.
Those are nice surprises.
And typically there are some very nice surprises that we get to enjoy in this profession. Another reason that people may not tell you is because of the uncertainty of what the amount really may be. And they don't want to give you any false notions or ideas. Now, that brings up another issue as it relates to your side of the business, Ken. If someone says to you, I'm going to leave you $100,000 in my will. I've had colleagues that immediately go to the accounting office and say, oh, we're getting $100,000. No, you're not. That's not what we call a mature gift, Death brings about maturity of gifts like this. Now, there is a way for you to know that that's out there. You can establish another column in your foundation accounting system, and it's a gift expectancy. Now, the thing that is really important, in my opinion, for that, Ken, is fundraising is all about relationships. And just because somebody tells you today that they're going to leave you $100,000, someone in the organization may offend them next week. And they decide, I'm not sure I want to do that. Well, in fact, during my years as a consultant, I had a client that was guilty of the very thing we're talking about. They were told that they were going to get a $4 million gift. So they booked it. And indeed, it didn't happen. At the time that I was working with them, I challenged the CFO and I said, what happens if that gift doesn't mature? And they said, well, we'll just write a reversing entry. I don't think that's a good way to practice accounting and gift giving. The expectancy column becomes very important. Then that way you continue to work on that relationship. Who knows? That 100,000 could turn into 200,000 because of the relationship that you build with that person. So, yes, gift expectancies are very valuable, but we can't spend it.
Right. One of the things that LifeTouch Health has is we have a society for our donors that have indicated that we're in their will, to keep them updated and keep them engaged with our organization, so they know, they may need our services, but they also know how we're using our funds and what we do with them. So we meet with them quarterly and have opportunities to share those kinds of things. So that group of people have said they're going to give part of their estate, but we don't have any indication from them, any of them yet, what they want to do with it. So when we receive a gift from an estate without any restrictions of how the gift is to be used, what would you recommend how do we process that?
That's a problem that a lot of organizations run into. Everybody thinks they know how Aunt Minnie wanted the gift to be used. What I would strongly recommend to organizations that I work with is, for example, with the LifeTouch Foundation, and you are, I guess, the executive director of the foundation, and I believe you have a foundation board.
Right.
It's very important, in my opinion, Kim, that the foundation develop policies as it relates to gifts that accrue to the organization, because those gifts come through the foundation. You are the 501c3 for the philanthropy of the organization. A lot of organizations that I have worked with have not developed a gift policy, and particularly as it relates to planned gifts, because a lot of small organizations, and especially social service organizations, that are not like colleges and universities that have been in the business of philanthropy throughout the life of the organization. And so I would strongly urge this organization, if you do not have a gift-giving policy, that you do that in a lot of areas that we've talked about, some that we have yet to talk about, but especially if someone leaves you a gift that is undesignated. People that I've worked with, I think, have appreciated the fact, and I strongly urge you, any planned gift that is unrestricted goes automatically to the endowment fund. We ask ourselves in organizations all the time, how do I build my endowment? Well, you can do it through designated suggestions to particular donors, but a lot of folks are not inclined to do that, and they do leave it unrestricted for you to use as you best see fit. What's the greatest need at the time of the maturity of the gift, for example? So endowment is something that every organization can never have enough of. And the beauty about an undesignated planned gift is that that is invested by the foundation or a firm that you hire to invest for you. Now then, the income from that endowment, it's unrestricted. So it can go for a broad use within the organization. But the corpus, the principle of that gift is intact in the endowment fund. So I strongly urge you, if you don't have a policy like that, by 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, you need to get one.
So planned giving and planned gifts, that's language that may be confusing to some people. What are some misconceptions you think that people have around what that means, or how they go about setting up a planned gift?
Well,
and that may be 2 questions.
it starts with the person across the desk from us. I don't know very many people that like to talk about death and end of life. And as a result, they put it off and they put it off and, well, tomorrow, you know. Today, before I left home, I told my wife, I said, you know, when I get back, we need to sit down and review our trust. We haven't done that for 2 or 3 years, and things can change. And I urge people, when you write a will or if you have a trust, then review it periodically. Every year would be ideal, but I don't know anybody, even the best attorneys that I know, don't do it every year, you know. But I think that is the number one reason. The people just don't want to talk about it. Now, another reason that they don't want to talk about it is the people who are heirs of their estate. Sometimes they don't want to talk about it. Mm-hmm. I can identify with that. I've got a son that when we bring it up, he says, "Oh, I'm out of here." He doesn't want to talk about it. Yeah, that means mom and dad are going to die. Well, yeah, we are. And so they don't want to talk about it. So those are reasons, I think, that a lot of people don't. There's another reason, and that's because it can be very stressful making decisions about who gets what and how much. And I think that's one of the things that has been a very positive within our society, because we have apparently, I like to think that people in our profession that we're talking about it more and more. Mm-hmm. People are becoming more at ease with discussing it, feeling better about thinking and making these decisions. But then they want to be fair with their children, grandchildren, or whomever it may be that they're leaving things to. The exciting thing for me, as I have worked in this profession for over 50 years, is that our philanthropic mindset has grown with the wealth of our nation, individuals within this great nation. And so we're recognizing more and more that we are blessed beyond what we realize. And it becomes perhaps then easier for me to say, well, you know, they took good care of mom at LifeTouch. And I gave them some money along when I was living. Why not do something at the time of my death, at the end of life? And so I think it's becoming more, it's hard to say that it's a common practice, because as you know, this is a subject that when we're talking to a donor, some of them get a little nervous, you know. So I think that we just have to keep it ever before people. Thank you very much for what you've done for LifeTouch through the years. Have you ever thought about, and now we move into talking about an end-of-life gift.
We recently hosted a podcast with, the topic was about having the conversations about end of life and how we put them off as Westerners. Because none of us think we're going to live forever, but we act like that's it, and we don't need. But one thing that I feel like when people are able to have their estate in order as much as they can, it's a gift to your family, because they're not scrambling afterwards, and you've laid out your wishes on giving or what your estate, you know, the distribution is going to be. So you're actually giving them something, and then you've been able to plan. So it's a gift.
Kim, that's a great point. And it really is, and I would take it one step further in terms of a gift. Plan our own end of life beyond just the will or the trust. We probably ought to write our own obituaries. I've got mine on file in the safe at home. Also, pre-planned funerals in recent years have become very popular. And I think that's important because, again, that's a gift to the family. They're in an emotional state at the time of death. Take that away from them. Pre-plan it. Know who needs to be contacted. Know who you want to conduct your funeral or whatever way you choose to do it. Um, when I'm gone, people are going to be surprised because being a West Virginian, we're going to have a West Virginia funeral.
Well, I'd also add to that, make all those preparations, and then tell your family where to find that.
That's right.
We had an experience in my family where that was done, but not told to anyone. So several weeks after the death, that was found. Like, oh, this would have been nice to know we had these plans.
Well, and I think included with that is who needs to be contacted.
Right.
What family members? Where do they live? Do we have their phone number or their address? Lifetime friends. Contact those folks. Let them know. Occasionally, we will find out that, oh, so-and-so died. Oh, really? When? Oh, well, 2 years ago.
Right. So that you're not reading it in an obituary or on a Facebook post about the funeral that you didn't get to attend.
That's right.
So someone listening today may realize they don't have an estate plan or a will or a trust. What are some basic first steps for someone to get started to be able to have their legacy planned out?
Well, I would like to think, Kim, that they would want to talk to people like you and me and others in our profession. Sometimes an attorney is not the best one to start with. And one reason for that is a lot of people, for whatever reason, do not have an attorney. And that's not a knock on attorneys. It's just that that's not anything that is uppermost in our mind, is that I need to have an attorney to help me with these things. And I've got a good friend that I talked to recently about, and he's a fairly wealthy guy. And I asked him, do you have a trust? He said, no, I don't. I don't need one. And I said, well, then that means that you are quite willing for the public to be fully aware of your estate. Because without a trust, if you have nothing, but if you just have a will, it is public knowledge. It goes to probate. Mm-hmm. And so I encourage people, even though a lot of folks will say, well, I don't have a large enough estate to do that. Well, what's large? My feeling is I would prefer that the world not know my affairs at the time of my death. And so typically I encourage people to do a very simple will. We call it a pour over will, P-O-U-R. You're pouring over from the will into the trust. Now, the trust has a lot of legalese in it, but it's really the end of life document that you want and you need. Who gets what, and at what stage. Sometimes it may be that you've had a child that has not been very good with finances, and so you may not want them at the time of your death to inherit a sizable gift of money. Maybe the best thing to do is to say, okay, at age 30, they would get 10%. At age 40, they would get 30% more or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I think those are the kinds of reasons And there are many, but those are the kinds of reasons I think that we should be thinking about as it relates to the distribution.
Well, I appreciate your time, and I like to end with one question that is there something that I didn't ask you that you feel you want to share or that you thought of that's important to this topic of planned giving and why it's important to organizations like LifeTouch Health?
Well, I believe that planned giving is important for LifeTouch because that is your life, if you please. You touch the lives of people in very challenging and difficult times. And hopefully they can and will appreciate what you are doing for them or have done for them, and that they will want to remember you. It's interesting to me that I've known people, and you probably have too, Kim, that they just they give to good causes while they're living, but they never think about leaving an organization that they've been generous with an end-of-life gift. Typically, the thing that I hear more often than anything else is, well, why would I want to do that? Everything's going to go to my kids. Well, if you choose to do that, that's okay. But my question to them is, okay, throughout your lifetime and your children's lifetime, you've supported them, you've given to them. Do they need anything more? One of the great philanthropists in the state of Arkansas that I had the privilege of knowing and working with said to me, Paul, I've got 2 children. I bought each of them their first car. I bought each of them their first house. I educated them. They had no student loans. I educated all of my grandchildren. They know when my wife and I die, there's nothing more. They got it while we were living. And I recall my mother and dad saying to me, you know, Paul would rather help you while we're still living and can see you enjoy it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a good philosophy to have. Give to our kids, our favorite heirs, be it a niece, a nephew, or whatever, while we are living, so we can see the fruits of what it is that our gift to them may have done.
Well, I do know on that people have been, it's a trend that people want to give their estate or their legacy gift while they're living, even organizations and nonprofits, to be able to watch how they're able to use that gift.
That's exactly right.
Not wait till they're not able to see it.
That's right. Kim, real quickly, and this would be another whole podcast, but beyond the will or the trust, there are so many marvelous ways that people can give through charitable gift annuities, charitable remainder trusts, annuity trusts, unit trusts, and they are great tools for us while we're living. Quickly, for example, a charitable gift annuity can be for 1 life or for 2 lives. And so at the time that the person makes a decision, they get a marvelous tax deduction, and they're going to get an income for the rest of their life. Mm-hmm. So that's another
episode. Yes.
Right.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today and answering so many questions that people have about how to plan their estate and what they're able to do with their legacy gift.
Well, thanks for inviting me, Kim. I've enjoyed it. You know me well enough to know that These kinds of things are my hot button. I'm ready to talk
Yes.
whenever.
Yes, I appreciate it very much.
You're
Thank you for
welcome.
joining us. For more information about LifeTouch Health, visit lifetouchhealth.org. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel, like this video, and share it with someone who may benefit from today's conversation.